The War Within final bosses revealed? It's down to these three. Who could it be? I don't think we're killing Xal'atath in this expansion. That's a guarantee. She is moving on into Midnight, that's for sure. So who will the final boss in this expansion be? I'm not sure. It's somebody that's going to lead us into the Midnight expansion, surely. Somebody who's important, but not, overly important to the storyline. Let's see if Doran, the Teller of Truths, has figured out who the final boss in the War Within expansion will be. Let's do this.
A lot of people don't realize that the War Within is literally ending in just a few months from this video. The new patch Undermine is mainly filler, but the story will be wrapped up by summer. With Midnight, the next expansion will get announced. This means that just a few months from now, we will be facing off against the final boss of the War Within. Previously, we could only speculate wildly, but now we do have some actual story development, interviews, and new information, so we got a few narrow options on the final boss. Who is it going to be? We know it won't be Xal'atath, so is it Azshara, the mysterious new god, or someone?
I think Azshara will show up, in the Midnight expansion as well. They've called it the Elven expansion, the Uniting of the Elves. What was Azshara? She was an elf who was really into hentai, hence her new tentacles and everything else. So she won't be the final boss either. Will it be a Dreadlord, something like that? Ooh, maybe too soon for that.
One else. While having the best deals on the market
and player
for all
housing,
games and software, Gamivo just added mobile top-ups for your favorite mobile games with the best prices that you can get with my Gamivo link in the description below. Best of all, if you use my code DORON, your discount will be even bigger. So make sure to use my link in the description and the code and check out Gamivo. So it is a bit crazy to think that the War Within is actually ending soon, despite the fact that the expansion only came out a few months ago, which just goes to show you about the new way Blizzard is doing expansions, as right now we would usually be in like a year-long lull with not much going on in terms of the lore. However, they had revealed
a year. I mean, it was like 8 months. Usually we'd just be kind of sitting, doing nothing, sitting on our hands. So yes, this faster patch cadence, this faster expansion cadence, are very good. I'm very happy with it, and I think it's a good pace.
Map for this year, and we've learned that they're going to announce the Midnight this summer, very likely late summer. This means that the main storyline of
I'll link it at the end of the video, Molly.
End by then, very likely around mid-summer, and we will already deal with the final boss of the expansion, or at least in the next few months, we will know for certain who it is going to be. The Star Nile and Undermine right now is really, let's be real, I mean, just one big filler for the main storyline, but 11.1.5 with the Nightfall and 11.2 should bring the real big bad, and it should really set the ground for the upcoming massive void invasion of Azshara. What is important to keep in mind, and I've been talking about this for a while now, is that there probably won't be some crazy culmination in the War Within, nor is the story all that exciting apart from everything we're learning about the future. Let's be real, all the interesting lore we're getting from this expansion is about what is to come later, the Old Gods, Void Lords, Titan Lore, the Arathi Empire, Ethereal.
Yeah, it's the first movie in a prequel trilogy, right? So I mean, it's not in a prequel, in a trilogy. So yes, it's a setup expansion for a lot of things. I do think we'll get some closure on some items, but mostly the Void Light, conflict. This whole expansion is just a setup for that.
It was really all foreshadowing for the rest of the World Soul Saga. Now, in the past year, he made multiple videos covering who the final boss of the expansion is, but of course, when they announced 3 expansions at once and we got the saga that we never got before, it was really impossible to predict with any accuracy, as it was really just a shot in the dark. However, now we are more than midway through the expansion and we got significant story development and some interviews, so we can pinpoint it a lot more than we could just a few months back. So the big answer to most people's question is that no, Xal'atath will not be the final boss of the War Within.
Certainly
I'm
not.
Speculating on this, Chris Metzen literally said this in a video interview that is uploaded to the official WoW YouTube channel. He told us Xal'atath is a long-term villain and she's here to stay for the saga. So one of the biggest predictions we've had for the final villain of this expansion has been officially disproven. Now, in my opinion, that leaves us with 3 really interesting options, and I'll talk about all 3 and then we can discuss which one is most likely or how it is going to transition into the next expansion. However, I want you to reframe the way you see the final boss of the War Within so that you're not really disappointed, because very likely it will be another Firak-esque villain. Usually the final bosses of the expansions are the villains that we...
I just say Firak had potential, but man, they threw him away. They threw his ass away. Even like the fact that we killed him and literally he's completely irrelevant in the entire cinematic. Like the post cinematic where we kill him, he's just his fucking body is just sitting there, and all the dragon aspects are having orgasms in the background because they're getting their draconic powers back. You know, they're getting their aspect powers back from Azeroth. While his dead body is just sitting. Even his sister Viranath is in the fucking cinematic, and she's not even acknowledging that her brother just got killed. Yeah, he was a throwaway, unfortunately, because he seemed like he could have had some better. He could have been more, you know, developed, but he was clearly just meant to just be there for this patch and die.
We defeat in order to stop the imminent threat, but as I said in the last video, we will lose throughout the saga, so the final boss of the War of Ten will really just be a bridge to midnight, and it's not going to be some epic fight like when we imprisoned Sargeras or defeated the Lich King. The first really interesting option, and by the way I said this a year ago that this could be a midnight villain, but it seems like Blizzard has been speeding through this storyline quite a bit. A very likely option is Queen Azshara. I'm not going to repeat myself too much because everyone knows about the foreshadowing that they have been building for her these past few years. It started at Dragonflight, they told us about this imminent...
I think when it's guaranteed she is coming back, but I just think she's her return is going to be in the Midnight expansion.
Return. Interesting enough, the real story began all the way back at BFA when, kinda out of nowhere, Azshara betrayed Xal'atath and then he dealt with her. The Naga document told us that since she has been in the Void Realm and that her return is going to happen any moment now. The predictions from that document all turned out to be 100% true, and pretty much every written line happened. What is really interesting is that Azshara never really allied with Xal'atath willingly. I mean, he essentially gave her the option to join or die when she sunk under the ocean, but ever since, I mean, she was the queen of the empire that ruled all of Azeroth. She was
I wish we could go back and see this city. I keep saying, like, you know, time travel's a thing, and wow, maybe we can go back and see some of these places in their full glory. This is one I want to go back and see Dire Maul before it became Dire Maul, Quell Denas, I forgot what it's called. But I want to go back and see these amazing Night Elf cities. Why? Because they all could be built up the same way Suramar was. And Suramar is one of the most beautiful cities they ever put in the game. So I'd love to see more architectural cities like this. I mean, look how nice this looks. Damn. Love to see it.
Seeking higher and higher power. In fact, she was obsessed with more and more power. At one point, she was flirting with the Legion as well, which led to the Sundering. However, in BFA, she told us that she's tired of the intermediaries, which means she saw through Xal'atath, the Old Gods, and all these mid-level powers. Over the years, she must have learned about Xal'atath, the Void Lords, and those who hold true cosmological powers, and she had aligned with them. Now, this return has been foreshadowed for a while, but on Siren Isle, in this current patch, recently we saw the Naga actually on a mission to grab a certain artifact that they would use to summon the Queen, and I feel like literally no one is actually talking about this. I mean, seeing that we're getting Nightfall and Horrific Visions, which were originally of Xal'atath, just after Undermine the next patch, it's very likely that her return...
I do think that one thing that's telling about the Horrific Visions returning, where is that, is Revisited. Horrific Visions Revisited, to me, tells me that it's not going to be new Horrific Visions, but we're going back to the ones that Xal'atath originally showed us. And I've talked about this before. I think the reason that we're going back there is to find the answers, right? Because technically, his visions are what Azeroth would look like if it falls to the Void. We're trying to avoid Azeroth falling to the Void. And how do we figure out, you know, how to do that? Maybe going to the point where it has fallen and seeing exactly what happened at that point to see how we could have stopped it. So, yeah, the whole Revisited line to me is telling that we're going back to the same shit. It's going to be Xal'atath Visions, not someone else's, and we're going to use them to try to win.
Patch, it's very likely that her return could happen even as soon as 11.1.5. If she returns, I could see her as the right hand of Xal'atath and the one that will actually bring the fight to the Elven lands in midnight. She is an iconic enough character, everyone knows about her, so this works well for Blizzard to hype up the expansion a bit. Having a random just introduced character, a filler villain like Vrak, doesn't really do much. So one of the options of who could be the final boss of this expansion is in fact Queen Azshara. Now the second option, and I know this might sound a little bit crazy, is either Xal'atath or the 5th Old God, and let me really quickly explain to you what I'm talking about. So the entire storyline of the War Within is with the Old God, blood being everywhere, and Xal'atath being the main focus, and the main focus is really the Void transitioning from the relics of the past like the Old Gods into a new and modern Black Empire.
That's
now,
right.
If you may remember, a while back, they heavily foreshadowed this 5th Old God figure, but literally we haven't learned anything new or significant since since then, and it has been over a year. First, they wrote official lore that 5 old gods exist, even though we only know of 4 of them. Then we found this strange mural in Azshara of a brand new old god figure with Nerubians entering his mouth. Blizzard really refused to elaborate anything further from
What
this
does it all
image.
mean?
There is a big possibility that this...
We still don't know. We completed the raid. We still have no idea what the hell they were being sacrificed for or what was going on in this image. And obviously, Beladar is the crystal that's sitting off to the right here in this image, all about to become relevant again. What does it all mean, though?
Image. There is a big possibility
We'll go
that
back
this
to
mysterious old god ruled from this land that might have been defeated under mysterious circumstances in ancient history, and this is where they're getting the old god parts from that are in all these laboratories. However, this old god would be a reincarnation, very likely puppeted by Xal'atath, only to delay us in order for her to launch the real invasion in the Eastern Kingdom. So this could be interesting. The only problem is that I don't feel like there is too much time for this to be written well, because as soon as we learn who it is...
Also, in this cinematic, where her portal opens up, I don't think that's a coincidence. Look at that. This is the crystal, or the image of Beladar, kind of sitting on the wall, right? And look where her portal opens up.
I don't feel like there is too much time
right on the crystal. I think that's intentionally placed there. That crystal could be a gateway eventually. Maybe she's going to use it as such. We'll have to see.
This to be written well, because
I think that's intentional
we will
placement.
fight him as a final boss in one patch. Now the other old god option is N'Zoth. I've talked about this in another video, but there seems to be a big rivalry between N'Zoth and Xal'atath. There are strange corrupted old god facilities near Undermine, and there's
a rivalry and a partnership. Don't forget, she brought us to N'Zoth, right? And then in trade, she left us. He gave her something, and she left us the dagger. She left the dagger for N'Zoth, and she left us with him. So at the end of the day, I think actually that dagger is what ends up saving N'Zoth. I think there's a piece of him still alive in it. When we stab him with it, I think he transfers over some of his essence to it. We'll see N'Zoth's fate. I don't think we're done with him just yet. But her and N'Zoth are the closest of the old gods when it comes to Xal'atath's relationship with them. Maybe it's a love-hate, but they have certainly worked together, that's for sure.
Seems to be a mysterious
she
sea
left us
under
like
the sea in Khazlagar that we're yet to discover, aka the 5th zone of Khazlagar, the code name.
She was using him? Yeah, I think they were using each other. It was a mutual usership. Both of them knew that they were both up to something, and both of them were willing to work together.
Some speculations say that this could be the real sunken city of Ny'alotha. We've seen Ny'alotha only in a vision back in BFA, but why was it called a sunken city when it was never really under the sea? It's possible that the true old god city is actually under Khazlagar, actually under the sea, and that the true prison of N'Zoth is actually there. Now, it is possible that N'Zoth has different ideas for Xal'atath, that he could emerge as an independent villain,
sure,
or that Xal'atath could combine his body parts and the old god blood to create some type of a monster that would only delay us until the last expansion. So, a N'Zoth, or a 5th old god figure, seems very likely. Now the last option, and this might sound a little bit crazy, but it is definitely possible. Check out my full video.
Some kind of sacrificial old god figure does sound like it could be the final boss of the War Within. That seems, potential. I mean, we do know that Xal'atath's been gathering old god blood and old god parts this entire expansion. That's what she was using the Nerubians for originally. So she could be building some kind of end boss just to delay us a little bit more so she can finish her grand plan, and we defeat that boss somehow. We end up messing shit up. Like, we're gonna win, but we're gonna lose at the War Within, and then we're gonna take big losses in Midnight. That's for sure. So that one could be it. Maybe some kind of hodgepodge old god. It could be the final boss.
Shown how there is actual evidence that Xal'atath may have been an Ethereal queen in ancient history that betrayed them, sold them to Dimensius.
This is an interesting theory.
Therefore, ultimately being turned into a powerful void being. It is plausible Ethereals are very, very familiar with Xal'atath, naming conventions and items she wears resemble an Ethereal, and in 11.1...
Yeah, somebody mentioned this before, the whole bandages on her legs thing, like... Let me see if I can get that image back up on the screen. Let them play.
Conventions and items she wears resemble...
Yeah, the bandages on the legs, while it is very sexy, and that may be why that's there, it could be also that she is an Ethereal. And the bandages are there because, they wear bandages. Now, it's part of their, it's what keeps them together since they were destroyed by Dimensius. But maybe it's some kind of, magical bandage, just like the Ethereals use. Could be.
An Ethereal, and in
also, if you look at ethereal armor in general, it's got all these sweeping and, the gems, obviously, and stuff. And you look back at her armor, very sweepy and gemmy as well. So yeah, it does kind of fit. She does have very ethereal-esque armor on and everything.
Example, an Ethereal, and in 11.1 an Ethereal seems to work for her. So an Ethereal final boss seems like a possibility for the
She's
finale.
not an Ethereal, she's a Naru. Also a good theory.
Storyline. The Ethereals have really been in the background since the start and even in the previous expansion. The Ethereals also got a surprising amount of consistent updates over the years, which means they're definitely going to be a big part of the main storyline. Another Ethereal related possibility is that we could fight them and Xal'atath as well. I know, I said that Xal'atath definitely won't be the final boss, this was confirmed, but just because we won't defeat her doesn't mean we can't fight her in some way, shape or form. It is almost certain that we will discover the World Core, the Titan prison at the bottom of Xal'atath by the end of this expansion. I feel like the conversion will be happening here, so we might be fighting the Ethereal assassins as well as Xal'atath, but we only end up delaying the inevitable and then transitioning into Midnight. So overall, the three possibilities is Azshara, Old God Stuff, or Ethereals with a mix of Xal'atath. However, don't get your hopes up too much. I don't personally expect the final battle of the war within to be some epic world-saving fight. I think they're really sacrificing this expansion to build up the hype for Midnight and the last Titan. Thanks for watching. Check out my video on how we will actually lose in the next expansion by clicking on the screen, and check out my new raid channel by also
Raptured,
clicking on the
yes.
screen as well. See you next time.
You were in Raptured. That's right. Yeah, interesting. I think probably, I don't think it's Azshara. I would say the best bet is some kind of like weird old god that is created by Xal'atath. I think that could be a likely villain, something that she puts in our way to delay us, something that she puts in our way to kind of, you know, as part of her grand plan that we have no idea what it is, but we keep stumbling along the way and finding out too late. I think all that's going to happen. Maybe by defeating this old god, we end up wrecking something or ruining something. Who knows? But in the end, we do know that we're going back in Midnight to deal with all the elves. We're going to Silvermoon. All that shit's happening. So I think Azshara is more likely a Midnight expansion person. Probably an old god. Good theory by Dorn. We'll have to see who actually the end villain is.